This part of the Ryze guide will deal with how to lane, and like just as an example, I will be using stream recording of myself playing in solo queue. Generally, when you lane, you don't want to push your lane at all, and that means you want to not auto attack your opponent early on if you are close to his creeps, because if you auto attack your opponent, then his creeps will attack you, and that means they are not attacking your own creeps, which means that the lane will push in his direction. Here in this video you see something or saw something very specific, is that if your opponent gets level 2 before you, you immediately need to back off and make sure that he is not able to engage on you, otherwise he will quite likely kill you or at least force out a flash. So you see, like, because he was auto attacking, he pushed the lane into my tower, and I lose some CS, but that's okay. Now I can try to freeze the lane near my tower and farm relatively safely. And because Ryze scales way better than pretty much any other top laner into late game, it's perfectly okay to just farm on the early levels, because that's where you are weakest. And then when you get like level 6, 7 and a tier of the goddess, you can start actually harassing them quite badly when they go into CS. So yeah, like until at least level 4 you pretty much only want to CS, and don't use too much mana on like trying to get your opponent low, because you actually need mana to last it under the turret. So I would not recommend to use too much mana on your opponent. Always keep a good amount to CS. A bit later, when you after you have backed for the first time and bought your tier of the goddess and hopefully some parts of the catalyst, the protector, then you should use your Q-W-E-Q combo to actively harass your opponent whenever he comes forward. And I would actually recommend to use your mana, if it's a melee opponent, primarily to actually harass the opponent when he goes forward to last hit, and not use your mana to farm or to stack up your tier. I think it's better to delay stacking up the tier a little bit, but instead like actually use your mana to force your opponent out of lane, or at least make yourself safe from getting all in. But really the most important part is that early on you really don't want to push your lane, because you're super vulnerable to gank, so you want to be close to your tower, and you have to be very careful of what kind of all-ins your opponent has available to him. Some example, if your opponent has Shen is not like a super strong laner, but if he has Ignite and you have Teleport, which you should, and he gets level 2 before you, and he manages to taunt you, then he actually will do a lot of damage, and you certainly have to use Flash, otherwise you will die to his Q, his passive, some normal auto attacks and Ignite, and well, Ryze simply being extremely squishy on early levels. And other, like Renekton is another case like that. If he gets level 2 before you, don't stand close enough for him to be able to dash to you and then stun you and get some auto attacks and Ignite off, because that will also kill you. If you're laning against a ranged hero, for example like an Elise or Jace, then I think you can use a bit more mana just to last it and stack up the tier, because you won't be able to harass them very effectively, most likely. But still, you should not, like, don't use too much mana on farming. I think it's okay to not stack up the tier super quickly, but instead have a good amount of mana to trade whenever they come close to you. And if you do get some kind of advantage early on, like your jungler comes and you get a kill, then you can actually zone your opponent very, very hard, because yeah, you should definitely ward if you want to do that. But your Q-W-E-Q combo will get most people below 50% health, just one of those combos. And if he's below 50% health and all your cooldowns come off again, you can actually flash forward, use the whole combo, ignite them, auto attack 1 or 2 more times, and they should die. So yeah, to sum up, be very careful on the early levels. Don't push your lane. Like, that's would be the biggest mistake. If you push your lane, you are just going to die to a gank, even if you started with a ward, because you are not mobile at all. And many top laners have like gap closers, slow stuns and such. and yeah, get to level 6, 7 or so, and then you can start to be a bit more aggressive, because once you have the tier, you also have a much better mana pool to actually be aggressive with. So I hope this will help you on your first attempt, and the next video will be about team fighting.